Mr. Okay, so when you're ready, you tell me. Good morning, Mr. Motlana.
Good morning.
We are very happy to have you at this important Africa Inequality Conference. We want to know the role of UNDP in this important conference.
UNDP is part and parcel of this conference for a number of reasons. The first of which is the fact that we have been at the forefront of supporting country officers in terms of measuring and implementing the Millennium Development Goals at the national level. That has been critical because we need to know where we are in terms of the implementation of the MDGs in order to advise and guide governments in terms of their policies and strategies to meet those particular goals. We have been doing this through all the 42 countries, through our network of senior economists that are sitting at each and every country in sub-Saharan Africa. And the second reason why we are here is to look at not just the MDGs from 2000, but to begin to strategize on the post-2015 Sustainable Development Goals and how those goals will be in a position to cover the areas that have not been attained. The completion of the 2000 agenda by 2015 and how to then set out the goals for sustainable development going into the future. One of the aspects that we're keenly interested in is our understanding of the impact of inequality in Africa. As Africa transforms, as our economies grow, there are dangers that growth cannot be sustained. Not only can it not be sustained, but there's also a danger of the fact that that growth can actually bring with it the seeds of internal disagreement, internal political discourse, not discourse, but internal political misunderstandings, and as a result undermine the development paradigm of each and every country. And we need to address this urgently. And this conference offers us the opportunity to do exactly that.
Thank you very much. And can you also tell us how the subject of inequalities is embedded in the post-2015 development agenda?
Inequality as a development challenge has to be addressed in terms of how do we address the transformation of our economies and the transformation and the development of our economies. And as we go into the post-2015 development debate, we need to ensure that economic guidance to governments, though transformative, must of necessity be inclusive. And with UNDP, as you are aware, our slogan is Resilient Nations, Inclusive Growth. And therefore, we need to address that aspect of it. Even though we build resilient nations, we must also ensure inclusive growth. And inclusive growth means that the lowest realms of our populations, of our economies, must be brought on par with those sectors of the economy that are transforming very rapidly. So without inclusive growth in the post-2015 agenda, we will then have a deepening of inequalities that we are currently experiencing, especially in Africa.
Thank you very much. And many a time we also hear about statistics from the UNDP. Who owns these statistics and why is that important?
The challenge that we have as African countries for the past 45, 50 years is that the statistics that we use to measure economic growth, environmental degradation, gender inequality are all not ours. We pick them up from international institutions, and we are not building our own capacity to actually measure our own progress. This is important. We need to be in a position to manage, generate, and talk about our own statistics. If the statistics come from somebody else, that person owns the discussion around inequality, around economic development, around gender-based violence, you name it. Because the data comes from elsewhere, then those people who hold that data are the people who then manage the discussions, manage the policies, manage the strategies. I was at the Oslo Center quite some time back. And at that center, we found out that, in fact, governance statistics in Africa had been collected for the past decade without most African governments even knowing that they were being collected. And as a result, some of the policies of our development partners were based on statistics that we did not even know existed. What we do need to do is to build up our statistical capacities in Africa. We must build up our understanding of the data, and we must take over the control of the narrative of development based on the statistical analysis that we undertake. If we do not do that, then other people other than ourselves are going to be the ones who develop those statistics, who get those statistics. For UNDP, it is imperative that we support the African Union Commission in the harmonization of statistics in Africa, and that we build up the capacity of the national statistics offices to be in a position to develop, generate objective, understandable statistics that are trustworthy and people believe in, and as a result we can develop our own policies based on the data that we ourselves generate. And that is an important aspect of our work going forward, because without that data, you cannot set up your milestones. You cannot know whether have you progressed or not progressed, because that progression is measured in terms of statistics. 15% reduction in poverty. Whose statistics are those? Those statistics must be nationally owned. Those statistics must be harmonized in terms of methodology, in terms of data collection, in terms of analysis. And that's what the SASHA program of the African Union Commission is about, and that's what we as UNDP in the individual countries as well as continentally must be in a position to support.
Thank you very much. Then the final question would be, how does UNDP assess or feel about its contribution to the development programs or agenda in Africa in particular?
UNDP is in a very unique position that most development agencies are not. Our primary focus of action is the country office. The UNDP country office in Ghana, in Senegal, in the Gambia, in Cameroon are all central. Our counterparts in almost all of those countries are the directors of planning or national development planning commissions and the Ministry of Finance, and we are in a position uniquely to influence government policies and to work with the government in establishing how their goals and objectives at the national level are going to be met. We have 42 senior economists embedded within all the UNDP country offices. So our dialogue with government is not, as was in the past, at the implementation level. Our dialogue with government is, how do you set up your strategies and policies in order to attain the goals of your national development plan? So when government says we want to do infrastructure, UNDP is not in infrastructure. But UNDP can say, okay, let's look at what your strategies look like towards attainment of that infrastructure. Let's look what your budget looks like towards attainment of that infrastructure, and let us see how we can better guide you. An example is the extractive industries. We are now assisting the government of Lesotho, the government of Mozambique, the government of Tanzania, the government of Guinea, and many more are coming on board in terms of, if you're going into the extractive industries, what legal frameworks do you require? What policy frameworks do you require? How do you ensure that the contracts you sign with the mining companies are fair? But more importantly, how do you distribute the wealth that is generated by your minerals to ensure that the entire nation equitably benefits from your extractive resources? That role of the UNDP in providing that overall guidance for governments and ministries is critical. One other final point to bring in. While we work with the government very, very closely and trying to support their development objectives, one other key aspect of UNDP's work is to also ensure that we bring in the communities, we bring in the CSOs and NGOs into the discussion, especially when we are now talking about oversight of the financial management system, when we are talking about ensuring that the distribution of the national wealth is equitably undertaken. The people who on the ground hold government responsive to their commitments are non-governmental organizations or community-based organizations, and we need to work with them to ensure that they carry out their part of holding national governments responsive. And we as UNDP then encompass that and bring them on board in any dialogue that we have with the government to ensure that we have a broad-based perspective that takes into consideration those checks and balances on any government policy going forward.
Thank you very much, and we wish you a good time here in Ghana.
Thank you very much. This is my second time. I'm sure I'll enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.